Today bestselling author of historical fiction. She has won awards for The Butterfly and the Violin and The Paris Dressmaker. And the British Booksellers, my favorite.
Oh.
Yeah. She is named to Cosmopolitan's Best Historical Fiction, Publishers Weekly, Religion and Spirituality Top 10. She's in the Library Journal's Best Books and also featured in several publications. She has a degree in art history and research writing. She spent 15 years in education and leadership development. She has even served as the VP for literary agent and as a literary agent with Gardner Literary. She currently lives in Indiana with her husband and 3 sons. Please help me welcome Kristy Cambron.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, you got it.
Okay. So I'm excited you're from Indiana. I'm also a Hoosier.
Love it.
Yeah. And I have 4 boys, not 3. So you were smarter than me. So just stop while you were ahead.
I am missing them. Yes, I am missing them.
Yeah. Okay. So I read that the idea for this novel came from a podcast.
It did.
And you heard Julia Child was in this by...
I did. So this story, we mentioned we're Hoosiers, right?
We are Hoosiers.
Indiana basketball is huge.
I'm
high
a
school basketball. Yes,
though.
okay. But Indiana high school basketball is huge. And our son was playing varsity basketball at the time, and he was going to summer camp. There was a hotel, and so that meant he was at summer camp. That meant we all were at summer camp. So we were staying in a hotel, and this is a sad part of the story. 2 seconds, and we'll be through it. I was getting over a bad bout of COVID, and so I was a few weeks out from that. I was still weak, and I'd heard this podcast. One of my favorites, write it down if you love podcasts, it is The History Chicks. So it is half of human history. It's all about women in history. It is phenomenal. And I heard this episode about Julia Child, and I knew Julia Child as like the Dan Aykroyd on Saturday Night Live and like the cookbooks on the shelf in my mama's kitchen, like that kind of thing, and maybe the PBS TV show. But I didn't know that she had a, quote, spy backstory in World War II. And so I was really intrigued. We're at this hotel. I take our younger sons to the pool, and I kind of collapse in the deck chair, because I'm exhausted. And I open this book about Julia Child. And in the front cover is this photograph from her flat, her Paris apartment in 1952. And if you know Julia Child, she was tall. She was like 6'2". And gotta love the bravery of this woman because she was wearing wedge platform heels in this photo. And she's standing over a stove, and it looks like a child stove because she's so tall and she's stirring something. And I just looked at that photograph, and it was almost like the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I was so inspired. I went, oh, and I like set the book aside. I picked up my phone, and I just started mad, like with my thumbs, just getting this synopsis down, this idea. And I texted it to my agent, and she said, "Where did you get this?" Like, that's how I read the text. "Where did you get this?" And I said, "Well, I just wrote it, and 5 minutes ago." And she said, "Write it. This is your next book. This is the next book you're going to write." And so that's kind of the story of just where it came from. And I put that on my Instagram. You can actually see the photo of that moment where I am sitting by you can see the pool, you can see the water, and I have the book, and there's the photograph. And that moment felt so special. I don't know why, but I was like, I'm gonna snap a picture of this moment. And that became 2 years, became the book.
Okay, well so I love research. Like, if I could just research for my job, I would research.
Me too.
So, I was going to say, if you ever need a research assistant, let me know. So tell me what your research process is like and how you go about that.
Yeah. So you mentioned that I went to art school. So I went to school for art history, research writing, had no idea that I was going to become an author. I just knew that I loved visual storytelling, and we kind of joke in our family that I have these hands that can't paint or sculpt or draw or do anything like an artist would need to do. And my mom, she would take my sister and I to the library every week in the summer, and my sister's still the most voracious reader I have ever met. She would run to the fiction section. So you were talking about Jane Eyre and Jane Austen, like she read all that, like she would read all this. I went the other way. I went to the art section. And at 7, 8, 9 years old, I would sit on the floor of the library like crisscross applesauce, and I would read these volumes of art history and Disney animation. And so that's what I had always wanted to do. I had no idea that I was going to step into my first college class at IU, and I always tell people, like, don't do what I did at 17 years old. I signed up for one of the advanced level art classes because I was interested. It was something really hard, like Japanese art or something. But I walked in, and I remember the professor, she was at the front of the classroom, and she was talking with some of the students, and she was talking like just like we're sitting here now, like they were on the same level and they had this community. And I remember thinking, oh, I want that. And I had this whisper on my heart that said, you're home. This is where you're supposed to be. And so didn't really know at that point that I was going to become an author, just knew that I loved visual storytelling, I loved stories, and I loved research. And I will say now that I get to paint with words. Had no idea that these hands were going to be able to do that, but that is the art of it. So the research part, that's the fun part, you know. I always say, if it's safe and it's legal, put me to work. Like, I will go and I will talk to people. And so I do have a research partner, but I would always take more. I always take more friends. The book that I wrote, The Painted Castle, that one was the third in a Lost Castle series. It's based out of my grandfather's experience during World War II. He was a B-17 co-pilot based out of Framingham and the 390th Bomb Group. And so I wanted to do research on Framingham, England. But at the time, we were just kind of at the tail end of COVID. So like travel, budget, schedule, like all those things just weren't really working. And so I will start in bookshops and libraries. And then, as I said, with the experts, I'll go talk to experts. But one of the other things that's amazing is YouTube. And so during that time for that novel, there was a video out there of a cyclist that I found. And he had a camera on his helmet and he was riding around Framingham. And it had like 19 views. And I think that was all me. But it was cool because I had one screen up here that was like Google Maps. And so I'm tracking the streets. And he's like, oh, and he would look to the left and here's the cemetery. And I'm like, got it, there's the cemetery. Okay. And then he would look to the right and, trying not to fall on this bike, but then he would look to the right. Okay, there's the whatever cafe. Okay, got it. And so anytime in my books I say something like turned left on this street, it's because I found the map, memorized the map, like did whatever I could do to make sure it's factual. Okay. In the Paris Dressmaker that is over there, it opens with, again, I love fierce female characters. So it opens with a female spy. She's been shot. She's running through the woods and you don't know what is happening. Well, I mentioned the moon up through the trees. That means that I researched the lunar calendar and where the moon would be in that hemisphere of the world on that day, in that year, in that month, and what the moon would look like to be able to describe it accurately. Like, that's the degree of research that I enjoy doing.
Wow.
Or for names, I will look at old census records, or if I say, like in the British booksellers, there's a scene in Piccadilly, like if I say she stood in front of this shop, I found a photograph with that shop, or on that street, on that date. Or if it's raining, then I found a weather report that it was raining in London on that day in that area, or the Blitz bombs. So I love going to that degree. So you ask about research, and we just tumbled down a big. I just took you right with me.
Yeah. So for this book, did you go to Paris?
I did not. Okay. I lament. I know. Je t'aime, Paris. No, I didn't get to go.
Okay.
Not at this point. Again, we have 3 kids and they have sports.
Right.
You know how it is.
Yeah.
So one day, and years ago, we had the opportunity to do some research, and that was again for the Lost Castle series. The first book is set in France. The second book is set in Ireland, and the third book is set in England, as I said. So we chose Ireland because I knew so much less. Even though Paris has my heart, I knew so much less about Ireland, and I wanted to do on-site research. At some point I'll get to go, but I did get to cook. I did some cooking.
Okay.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. This was just a really quick video just to share the awesome local indie bookstore event in Cookeville, Tennessee at the Plenty Bookshop in downtown Cookeville. And if you're not familiar with Cookeville, it is in Middle Tennessee, and that's our local indie bookstore. And I absolutely love the bookstore. They have just some really great author events, and the front is just so inviting, as you can tell from the bookstore. It has just all of the cozy elements that you want in a good bookstore, and I think you guys could kind of tell why I'm partial to that bookstore compared to the one we went to in Nashville in the last video. Or actually, I don't know the one you saw, but the one that when Lindsay came to visit, the one in Nashville, Parnassus, that we went to, it's fine, but there's just something more inviting about the bookshop locally here. It's a nonprofit, and they really take a lot of care and put a lot of just investment back into the community, and I absolutely love that. And we're actually getting like these authors here locally that are pretty well known in clean and Christian fiction. And Kristy Cambron is, I always say Cambron, that's just my southern, but it's Kristy Cambron. And so I don't know, I can't pronounce anything. But she is an author that writes clean historical fiction. I think she has had some faith-based fiction in the past as well. And I have read 2 of her books. And when I heard that she was coming to our local indie bookstore, I was like, yes, sign me up. So I left work about an hour early to go and just hear her talk about her writing process, some research that she enjoys doing. And she talked for a little over an hour. And I had like maybe 5 minutes or so that I was like holding my phone here. I was sitting in the front row just to kind of give you guys a little behind the scenes. You know, it's really awkward in public to try to do something like that. So I was surprised that I actually got any kind of footage for this, but I just wanted to share it with you guys to just support Kristy and her books. I have really enjoyed 2 of her books. You saw me talk recently about The French Kitchen. We'll kind of go into that again here in just a minute. I have talked before about the Italian Ballerina as well. And then I own the British Booksellers, and I own the Paris Dressmaker. And so she talked a little bit also about her new release that's coming out in 2027. She just released, of course, The French Kitchen. So yeah, all of these things, and it was just really nice. And I'm so thankful that Blake just kind of, you know, watched Little Man, and, you know, I was able to kind of go and just, you know, fill my cup. My heart is full, and to just, you know, just to hear her thoughts about her writing process, and to learn more about all of her books, and to get some books signed as well. It's just something so special about, you know, especially for me, where I'm not able to really travel right now out of state to go to these big author conferences and events that I know a lot of you are able to attend. I'm not really in that place yet. My son's autistic. We haven't even taken him out of state before. You guys already know this. And so we may take him to the beach at some point in the future, either next year or the year after. It just depends on if we're ready for that. But you guys know that I'm not able to really, you know, travel out of state to some of these big events that go on, a lot of the author events and major signings where maybe there's 15 plus authors, right, that I've seen. And, you know, whenever I do get the opportunity to travel within a couple of hours from home and to be able to just meet an author that I have enjoyed their work, and to hear from them, and to just, you know, learn more about them as a person. And is there something just so special about that for me personally? And I just feel so blessed that God has given me this opportunity to be able to share this with you guys, and to kind of fill my cup in that way. So yeah, thanks to the hubs for always, you know, taking one for the team. I know Little Man's a lot. It was during the week. It was a work week. But, you know, I'm just so glad that 15 minutes away, I could go to this bookstore and see Kristy and just hear her talk about her research. Her research process was so awesome to just hear about. Like, I put pictures on the screen to show you some of the books that she was talking about when she talked about them. But to hear that process in more depth, I appreciate that, especially in a world of where a lot of authors feel like they have to publish so quickly, and they are probably not taking as much time in their work as they should. Like, it was really nice to see or to hear Kristy talk about how much time she spends in research, and she, you know, from the almanac and the census and the moon phases, and like tying in with like where the character's at, looking at like maps of roads, and if she's going to turn this way, making sure it's as accurate as possible. Like, that means a lot in a world filled with things like AI, and I mean, I know a lot of authors use that for research purposes, but also, you know, it's just nice to see an author who's utilizing books, YouTube, videos, other articles online and things like that and actually like visiting places for their research purpose, you know, and like seeing things tangibly. Like I really appreciated that background, and I was glad to include some of that discussion in here so you guys can see as well. And like, she's not in any hurry to publish books all the time like some people are, which is fine. I'm not saying like it's okay if they want to publish books quickly, but I think that there's this pressure on a lot of authors right now to publish. And there's something to be said about when an author takes some time with their craft, with their work, they spend the time on the research. You can just definitely see it. And like in these two books that I have read by her, The Italian Ballerina and The French Kitchen, you can just tell that she takes time with her books, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll talk about those in just a minute, but I just want to include this in here. And I don't know when you're seeing this video. Today is actually September the 3rd. And I think I'm going to have this come out next week, either the 8th or the 11th. No, the 8th is the wrap up. So probably the 11th. So yeah, I just try to like space out my uploads for whatever's best for my schedule to help me. But I am just, my heart's full, you know, from being able to meet Lindsay, you know, even for a few hours. And then this event was just wonderful. I was able to see some friends as well. I'll put some photos on the screen, but Kim Griffin is also an author. I have talked about her books here on the channel. She writes Christian romance, and I have not yet had a chance to read her books, but she's a local author, an indie author, and I'm looking forward to reading her books, but she's just such a sweetheart. So please follow her on Instagram, check out her books. I'll leave a link down below for her books as well for you guys to check out if you're interested. And then of course, Burley. Burley is so sweet. We call her the mayor of Bordox. Bordox meaning in the Getting Shipped series from Savannah Scott. It's just a running joke, but I love Burley. She is so sweet as well, and I'm so glad she was able to come. We got to just chit chat, and you know, she was able to get her book signed as well and whatnot. So she's just a light in the community also. So it's nice that she you know, is in Tennessee as well. We could kind of connect sometimes at the bookstore, and that's awesome. So yeah, but that's kind of all I have to say about that. Let me just tell you guys a little bit about The French Kitchen. I read this on audio back in the end of July, and I wanted a physical copy. I told you guys that because I feel like this book is best read physically. Where I didn't have the physical copy, I had, you know, requested an ARC, so I had an early audio copy. I feel like while the audiobook narration is good, there's dual timeline, multi-timeline actually, and you know, you've got like these code names and things like that and different perspectives of like some of the same characters in different timelines. And so to me, it's important to physically see those words on the page. And I think there's just a few things that I missed, but I plan to actually reread this at some point when I have time to really just sit with it. You know, like when you are listening to a book and you're like, I can tell the audio is affecting me and I should have just put it down, but I didn't. I just continued on trying to, you know, get what I could out of it. So yeah, that's kind of what happened here. But I think if you like historical fiction, Julia Child, undercover operations, hidden identities, the World War II fiction, Paris and France, French language, that's a little bit in a book, kitchens, of course, cooking, the art of cooking in books, like this is definitely one to pick up, The French Kitchen. So we had our girl Kat, and she's recruited by the OSS as an agent in 1943. She is hoping to find her missing brother, and she agrees to go to France as a spy. And then years later in 1952, she's still searching for her missing brother, and she's acquainted with others that she knew during the wartime. And so we see those different timelines, the same characters, multiple identities, and different plans that's going on. And that's why I think this book is like probably definitely best read physically. Also, Kat is like very sharp, and these undercover operations that she's working in, like this kitchen that caters to the Nazi elite. So she's tied in with this resistance. There's a lot of suspicion. In 1952, we see her marriage to this man Gerard, and the marriage happens for several reasons, but not love at first. And then Kat kind of doesn't really trust him either. A lot of things happening there in that timeline. And then, of course, you've got the cameos of Julia Child and some of her quotes. Like one thing Kristy talked about with this book is she had a book of her quotes. It was trying to incorporate some things she actually said and keep it true to her character and everything. And just the food and the cooking bits, like she's working in the kitchen, of course. And it was really a good story. It just takes a lot of brain power to keep up because of all those things that's going on at once. So very immersive, and it just is what I think you need to sit with. That is just very in depth, very interesting. So The French Kitchen is her newest release that came out in August. If you guys will check that out, she did sign it, and I love this. Oh my goodness, I love when you have a signed book. But let me see if you guys can see that. So it says, "To Amanda, thanks for supporting authors and books. Bon appetit." Kristy Cambron. So super sweet. And then I also, like I said, read the Italian Ballerina, and I read this in 2023. I'm getting my review pulled up because memory, where is it? I needed the review up for this one, and I read it in July. So, okay. But the Italian Ballerina, I cried in this book. And I told her that. She was like, I always say, listen, no spoilers, but I'm sorry. So it was just an emotional roller coaster. Very much a powerful ending. This one does have, I remember, like a slow start, but after the like first 50%, like I guess the last 50%, I should say, this had me invested. So this is also dual timeline. She's known for dual timeline stories, but it's like a historical World War II. These are also published by Thomas Nelson, so you know, like going into it, they're going to be clean. And I told her how much I appreciated clean fiction and her stories for that. So, and she said she did also have some faith in her books in the past as well. But yeah, so that's really great that I can tell you guys that, you know, something that you can trust her work, in my opinion. You know, the content's going to be fine so far from what I've seen, at least in these two books. So in this book, The Italian Ballerina, it's set in Rome in 1943 in present day, and we follow three different people. So you have the British ballerina, Julia Bradbury, who is stranded and forced to kind of take refuge on Tiber Island, and she ends up risking everything to rescue Italian Jewish people from the Holocaust. And they talk about this. She talked about this tonight too, like how she took something that happened in really happened in history, and she puts it in her story. So she researched all about the fake Syndrome K disease, and that was a disease that was used to save Jewish people from the Germans. And so one day, in this story, a young little girl who dreams of being a ballerina shows up at her door with Julia, and several others are determined to kind of reunite this young dancer with her family, and they're all intertwined in this Syndrome K thing. So then we're also following Private Courtney Coleman, and he's a medic in the war, and his journey is in 1943 and 1941. So we're jumping back and forth a little bit with him. And you see him like trying to escape the German soldiers with the young girl, and then jumping back and forth after we see him with the girl, and trying to keep her safe with the friend AJ. So then they meet Julia along the way. So it kind of it's all back and forth, but it does end up intersecting at some point. It can be a little confusing, like I said, but once it's all together, it makes sense. And this is one that I've read a little bit on audio, but also in tandem, and that helps, like seeing it on the page. So in this one as well, we also had Mateo and Delaney, and Mateo contacts Delaney to let her know, like, it's a whole nother thing. It's a whole other storyline. But Mateo contacts Delaney to let her know that her late grandfather's items that belong to his grandmother are there. She would like to see them again, so he offers to fly her out there to Italy with the items or whatever. Something about that. She ends up going there, finds letters that were written in Italian in her grandfather's things. So because of that, she believes him, and they start piecing things together from the past, which is also in the other timelines here. So it really just ties together. Lots of back and forth, but it's worth it in the end. There's a little faith element in this one, if I remember correctly. So yeah, those are the two I have read. The other two I have not read, which I should show y'all the signature too. I forgot. So here's the signature for that. That was cute. Love it. Y'all can see it's picking up my face. It just says "Ciao, Bella." So to Amanda. And then the other two I've not read is The Paris Dressmaker. A lot of y'all have really enjoyed this book, so I got this as a gift from a friend when I first started my channel, which was super sweet. So yeah, she signed this one also. Bon voyage. What? Bon voyage. Amanda. Bon voyage. That's what she said. I can't even say words. So this one says it's in 1939 and 1943 in Paris. So it's based on true accounts of Paris, I don't even know what I'm saying, people in Paris resisting the Nazi occupation in World War II. From fashion houses to the city streets comes a story of two courageous women who risked everything to fight an evil they could not abide. So there's that. And then this is another one that's fairly recent, if I remember. I want to say the British Booksellers was in 2024. Yep, it was. So yeah, the British Booksellers is the other one. And if you let me open it up and I'll show you guys that. Happy reading. So this one is inspired by real accounts on the Forgotten Blitz bombings. It highlights the courage of those whose lives were changed forever by war and the stories that bind us in the fight for what matters most. So yeah, I will leave both of these books just for timing. I won't read the synopsis of both of these since I talked pretty in depth about those other two I have read, but these both sound really good. Like obviously the British Booksellers is like a bookstore, it sounds like, and the Paris Dressmaker is surrounding like dress creation of obviously like the dressmaker, couture, all of that stuff. So one thing she talked about is she takes like an art and incorporates that in her books, and I love that. Like she's talking about obviously the art of dressmaking, right? Booksellers and bookselling and books in bookstores. And then Italian ballerina, we've got a ballerina, a dancer. Then of course in the French kitchen, we've got the art of cooking. And then several of her other books, she talked about all the different pieces of art that she incorporates. And you'll see like descriptions of art and history and things like that incorporated too in her books. So just a little bit about that. I thought I would share that with you guys. She also gave me one of these cute cards. Love this. On the back, there's like a little recipe, okay, for salad. Now listen, I'm not going to say this. Salad Parisine. I don't even know how you say it, but you take like obviously lettuce, pear, chicken breast, blue cheese, crumbles, pine nuts or chopped pecans, lemon, organic honey, extra virgin olive oil, and some pepper and parsley to taste and salt. And you just kind of layer all of that in a chilled bowl and combine, and then talks about like the dressing and all that stuff. So cute. We love that. Love good recipe, honey. So yeah, that's kind of everything I had for you for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Just another little vlog and an author spotlight, if you will. She has a lot of books, you guys. Like some I don't even own. So yeah, I will leave a link down below for you guys to check out her books, and her like, you know, list of books. She talked about her process of like where she also entered like a contest for writing, and that's part of how she was able to like get in touch with her publisher and things like that and her agents and stuff. So that was really nice to hear about as well. But like I really want to look into that Lost Castle story. It says it's a split time romance. That sounds really good. And then book 2 was in Ireland. You know I love Ireland, so like hearing her talk about like her research and stuff with that too was really nice. And then her new release actually that comes out in 2027 is going to be set in the 1960s, and it's about like a first woman CEO, and like I'm here for it. Like that's awesome. So it sounds really nice. Her first novel I think was The Butterfly and the Violin. I mean, there was just so many good books that she's wrote that sound great. It's not down below regardless for you guys to just check out some of those things. But it's always nice to kind of put the face with the books, put the person with the books, whatever, and to just learn a little bit more about their writing style and their writing process. So that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know if you read Kristy Cambron. Do you like her books? What is one that maybe I mentioned that you are interested in? What do you think of the video? Let me know. I'm so glad I was able to put this together for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye, y'all.